to the 700 Club. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has dropped a last-minute surprise. What is it, and why did she do it? Washington correspondent Jenna Browder reports.
A historic vote in the House last night as President Trump becomes the third American president to be impeached. The vote happened down party lines, with all Republicans voting against impeachment and 3 Democrats breaking with their party.
A great day for the Constitution of the United States. A sad one for America.
Democrats charging President Trump with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress.
Article 1 is adopted.
Both sides making the same arguments they've made for months.
But this isn't just about Donald Trump. They don't just hate Donald Trump, Madam Speaker. They hate the 63 million Americans who voted for this president, the forgotten men and women of this country who have been left behind, Madam Speaker.
His actions reflect precisely the type of conduct the framers of the Constitution intended to remedy through the power of impeachment.
President Trump responding in real time from his rally in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Oh, I think we have a vote coming in. So we got every single Republican voted for us. Whoa. Whoa.
And not mincing words about the Democrats.
Through their depraved actions today, crazy Nancy Pelosi's House Democrats have branded themselves with an eternal mark of shame.
And now new uncertainty. Speaker Nancy Pelosi declining to say when or even if Democrats will deliver the articles to the Senate, citing concerns about an unfair trial. Democrats would like to call witnesses in the Senate, something usually only done in the House. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has already rejected the request.
We'll make a decision as a group, as we always have, as we go along.
Leader McConnell is expected to meet with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer today to iron out the details of the Senate trial. That's expected to begin January 6th, but only if Pelosi decides to move the case forward. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, our chief political analyst, David Brody, is with us from Washington. David, what's this thing about delaying a Senate trial? Who's going to gain from that one?
Well, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats hope they are the ones that gain ground. Look, it's her last-ditch effort at leverage in all of this process. Basically, let's just go back for a moment, take a step back. After those articles of impeachment were passed, Pat, by the Democrats, and by the way, that was a straight party line, partisan vote. The next step is to actually sign House impeachment managers for the Senate trial. That vote was never taken. And the reason that vote was never taken is because the minute that vote passes, that's it. McConnell, the Republicans, the Senate, they have control. Nancy Pelosi wants to wait. She wants what they're calling a fair trial. They want witnesses. They want to see Giuliani in front of the Senate trial, or on that Senate stand, if you will. They want Mulvaney. They want John Bolton. That's what they want. They're not going to get it, Pat. But look, what they're hoping for in the Senate, you got 47 Democrats. If they can get 3 Republicans, that's what they're going to need. Maybe a Murkowski, maybe a Romney, maybe a Susan Collins, possibly a Cory Gardner as well, a couple others. Then all of a sudden they've got a block of 50 that can force McConnell's hand in the Senate to start calling some of these witnesses. It's a long shot, but that's what they're hoping for. In the meantime, it just looks like another political tactic on the left.
Well, you know, Mitch McConnell says, look, it isn't our job to perfect what the House has done. They're supposed to get their act together and then send it over to us. So he's not required to call any witnesses if he doesn't want to.
Well, that's exactly right. And at this point, it's starting to look like, to a degree, and there are certain constitutional scholars making this argument on the right, on the conservative side, that Nancy Pelosi is now obstructing business in the Senate. And if she's doing that by holding those articles of impeachment, at least for the time being, that Mitch McConnell can say, look, impeachment is null and void. We can't do anything over here because they're holding it in the House. Once again, another unprecedented move, but it's all going to show that this has been political from the very beginning. Let's also remember Mitch McConnell, as you know, and you know him well, Pat, he's a no-nonsense guy. He's not going to stand for any of this. He wants a quick 2-week trial, opening and closing statements, and be done with the whole thing. Of course, Donald Trump, in a perfect world, would love to see a lot of witnesses, including Adam Schiff, the whistleblower, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden. That's not going to happen. And let's just remind everybody out there, the way you call witnesses in a Senate trial is you need 50 votes. So you've got 53 Republicans, and you're going to need 50 votes. The question is, can they get 50 votes to call a Hunter Biden and a Joe Biden? Even though there's 53 Republicans, you're going to get quite a few moderates saying, we're not going to play that game of bringing Hunter Biden and Joe Biden into a Senate trial. So that even won't happen on the conservative side.
David, let me ask you about the facts of this impeachment, that the president used this for his personal gain. He finally sent the aide over there to them. I mean, what did he do that was wrong? Do you have the facts behind it? It looks like nobody in the House really brought it out. I mean, well, here's what really happened.
Look, Pat, there's no firsthand knowledge of anything here at this point in terms of a quid pro quo. As a matter of fact, the one time someone that we heard testified, Gordon Sondland, testifying, saying that he heard from the president saying, I don't want a quid pro quo. There's nothing here. And so, like Richard Nixon, there was a crime. There was there was a robbery. There was a break-in. And then we heard, of course, Richard Nixon on that tape basically saying to the telling his folks to stop the FBI from investigating. Look, there's a smoking gun there. We got a crime. Bill Clinton, perjury, Monica Lewinsky, all of that going on. There's just, at this point, all this is a bunch of State Department bureaucrats talking about what Donald Trump did or did not want, but never heard from the president himself. And so you put all of that together, and what you have, Pat, is this. You have a partisan impeachment vote, the first one ever in the history of American politics where no Republican or Democrat, in this case it's Republicans, voted for impeachment. I believe, Pat, the American political process has changed forever. This is now a game of political retribution in this country. And for the next Democrat president, when that person comes along, wait until the Republicans control the House, and this is going to be a whole different political ballgame going forward.
Dave, are the Republicans going after those Democrats in the House? Well, there are about 41 of them that are in Trump districts. Is there a plan to really go after them in this election?
Absolutely. And we're going to find out soon whether or not that's actually going to come to fruition. We're going to see polling in those districts. There's 31 specific districts that Trump has won, or Trump won in 2016, but Democrats control in the House. And this has been the big concern all along. But already, Pat, we are seeing in many of those battleground states, the polling suggesting in places like Michigan and Ohio and Iowa and others, that the president is actually stronger after impeachment, not weaker. I truly believe that, and we've talked about this before, but I believe that the actual House vote to impeach Donald Trump was actually a vote for 4 more years of Donald Trump. You know, it's one thing to wake a sleeping giant, but if the Trump base and others out there are already awake, they were already awake, and now you just gave them an adrenaline shot for 2020. I tell you what, Democrats are really, I think they've overplayed their hand here, Pat. And if you think about it, if it's 4 more years of Trump, which looks like a pretty good bet right now, he'd be the first president impeached, by the way, to win re-election. What does that mean? Well, that means a replacement, most likely, I'm pretty sure, for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So there is so much riding. There was so much riding on the December vote in 2019 of impeachment. It could really come back to haunt the Democrats big time.
Well, we're saying Trump now have gotten the court system. He put on another another judge, 50 judges or so. He's got the Senate, and now he can win the House, so he would have like a trifecta. He'd had, I mean, they're playing right into his hands on this one, aren't they?
Well, they really are. And by the way, speaking of judges, all of this impeachment drama and saga remind me of what happened back in 2013 with the nuclear option and Harry Reid and the judges. Remember all of that? I mean, Harry Reid in 2013, Democrats had control in the Senate, and they said they were going to go nuclear. They were going to lower the threshold to approve federal appeals judges from 60 down to 50. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans said, don't you dare do it. It's going to come back to haunt you. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened, because Republicans got control. They lowered the threshold on Supreme Court nominees, and you got Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump has remade the federal judiciary at the appeals court level. Why? Because Now, Democrats can't do a thing about it. It used to be 60 votes, but in 2013, they changed it to 50 votes, and Donald Trump has totally remade the federal judiciary for the next 20 to 30 years. It has been striking, and that is exactly what happened in 2013. It came back to, as they say in New York, bite the Democrats, and watch out. Impeachment might be coming back to bite them again in 2020.
Big time. Well, David, thank you so much. And it looks like for all the world, as you look at polls, Trump is beating all the Democrats. The Democrats have one of those incredible debates again where they beat each other up, but there's no leader. They don't have a candidate that's worthy of going up against Donald Trump. Amazing. Well, in another blow to Obamacare, what did the court say, and will the law survive? John Jessup has more on that.
That a federal appeals court ruled the insurance mandate in Obamacare is unconstitutional. That's the part of the law requiring Americans to buy health insurance. In a 2-to-1 vote, a 3-judge panel ruled Congress was right to remove the mandate, meaning the law cannot be enforced. But the court didn't rule on Obamacare overall. Instead, it directed a lower court to reconsider a ruling that the entire law is invalid. The case could end up before the Supreme Court, and Pat, other parts of the law that are popular could survive, like provisions protecting people with pre-existing conditions and letting children under 26 remain on their parents' health insurance plans.
Well, the question is whether the law has severability in it, and if it does, then of course if one piece goes down, then the rest can stand. But if this thing is all connected together, this ruling, which is a powerful ruling from a circuit court, it's not a district court, could indeed pull down all of Obamacare, and it would be amazing. They couldn't get it through, but now they can. And oh my, one more win for the president. John?
Pat, the Justice Department's Inspector General Michael Horowitz criticized the FBI's handling of the early stages of the Russia probe. In a second day of Senate testimony, Horowitz cited serious mistakes and omissions in applications for warrants to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. In his report last week, Horowitz highlighted those misdeeds, including leaving out information that the Democratic Party funded research for the Steele dossier, which was a main source cited in the applications. Also omitted the fact that Page was not working for a foreign government to influence the election. Senator Lindsey Graham said it is clear investigators abused the FISA application process.
If it's not a system problem, that tells me that people in the Carter Page case got drunk with power, had a personal agenda, and they acted on it. If it's a systematic abuse, it tells me that the FISA process needs to be dramatically reformed. Either way, it's bad.
The Inspector General will audit past warrant applications looking for irregularities, and the FISA court's presiding judge is ordering the government to give written proof by January 10th, Pat, that every warrant application was accurate.
You know, as we look at the president, he has been subject to unremitting attacks because the deep state did not want him to beat Hillary Clinton. And so they viewed his election as illegitimate. This impeachment thing is one part of it. All that FISA stuff is another. The report that came from Mueller, which was another. And trying to bring up charges against the president for obstruction of justice, et cetera. It's all phony. It's been cooked up by people who just hate him. And I think it would be nice if we found out what the name of that so-called whistleblower is. And the FBI is going to have to clean house. I have been a great fan of the FBI, but so help me, they've got serious problems. And you listen to Comey trying to justify what they've done, it's just absurd. They gave a free pass to Hillary Clinton for doing all this stuff about changing servers and cleaning up files and so forth, and yet they try to put Michael Flynn and others in jail. It's been a terrible, terrible travesty all the way along. I mean, Donald Trump is anything but a saint, that's for sure. But nevertheless, the left has really been giving him fits, and he seems to have stood up very nicely against it. Well, there's one thing that he apparently isn't doing. He's overeating, and he's getting quite large. John has a report about what's happening not only to him, but throughout our country.
Pat, America's obesity problem is growing out of control. Nearly half of all Americans will be obese by the year 2030, and about 1 in 4 Americans will be severely obese. That's a prediction in analysis published by the New England Journal of Medicine. It's based on more than 20 years of data from 6.3 million adults. The study projects severe obesity will be most common among women and both black adults and low-income adults. And Pat, that's just 10 years away.
Well, it's a shocking thing. You know, I remember when I was studying in archaeology, you go back to the early days of Sumer and Akkad, and you find this very robust, muscular people, and then over a series of decades, you find the muscular people are getting soft and they're getting punchy. Well, this is what is done it here. They have permitted the sale of high fructose corn syrup, which is now into everything. There's sugar into everything. There's nothing you can find to eat that isn't either loaded with salt or loaded with sugar. It's unbelievable. And I caution people, you need to read the labels. But look what we do to children. We start out feeding them sugar pops and all these sugar cereals. And they begin to eat that. And what happens is they build up a culture of little bugs in their gut. And the little bugs take over their mind. And the mind says, you've got to feed me more junk food because that's what I like. And so they begin to eat more cake and more pie and more sugar snacks, and especially Coca-Colas and sugar drinks, Cokes and Pepsis and so forth. And all of it contributes because it doesn't take but so many calories a day to get fatter and fatter. And people stop exercising. But it is a serious, serious health problem. And we've had a series called Build a Better Gut to show about what we need to do to get that in balance. But few people are, and every time somebody has an antibiotic, it kills all of the benign gut flora. And it's terrible, but that's the science of it. It's the cutting-edge science, and Laurie Johnson's been showing it here on this program. But this is an epidemic. This really is terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think also people are beginning to recognize that, don't you? Many people are eating food that's freshly grown,
well,
and so you'd like to think that's going to turn around.
Tiny, tiny, tiny. Because they still drink Cokes. If you look at how much sugar is in a Coca-Cola, how much sugar is in a Pepsi, you know, and you have 32-ounce Cokes that you get at these stores. You know, it's supersized, and you go to these the drive-in, and you get thousands of calories in all the burgers and the shakes. Anyhow, folks, you're looking at a person who's lost a lot of weight, and it probably doesn't look too good, but if you lose weight, you'll live longer, and I suppose that's what I'm supposed to do.
I think so.